What's going on, you guys? You're tuned into the Cutting Room Knife Review. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we're taking a look at another budget banger. This is the Vosteed Shillin Cutter. And this very well may be the most interesting knife I've had on our Budget Blade series, if not any of my reviews so far. This knife is really pretty strange and interesting. It's not a knife whose aesthetics are something that called out to me originally. I thought this knife looked really funny. What's up, guys? I'm Garrett. You're tuned in to the Cutting Room Knife Review, where I review knives, blades, and all things sharp. Please like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you more killer knife content. When I first picked it up, but I figured there had to be a reason for it to look this funny, because it was so out of the norm. From what I was seeing, especially for Vosteed, who has some pretty traditional blade styles. Not everything's traditional by them, but a lot of it is pretty, not run-of-the-mill, but traditional, not too outside the box. And just so much of this knife is completely outside the box that I really had to pick it up and review it. I was just interested in seeing what makes this knife tick. And really, it's got a lot of different kind of cool things to it than a lot of the other knives that I've reviewed, especially a lot of the other budget bangers that I reviewed. And this is one of the most unique, if not one of the coolest knives that are in the budget bangers series. So let's take a look at this knife, its specifications, its materials, and just what makes it so unique. So the Shillin Cutter is right on the edge of what we consider a budget banger. It is $99 for this version of it. There's actually a higher end version of it that goes for $150 that has upgraded blade steel and upgraded handle materials, but is essentially the same knife in form and function. Now, so this knife is going to be 7.07 inches long. So it's another rather small knife. Vosteed does not tend to make big knives. You don't see them getting towards 8 inches. A lot of times they're 7 inches or even under. But this is just barely a touch above 7 inches. And we have a blade length of 2.9 inches. I kind of like that it's under 3 inches by not a significant amount, but a measurable amount. That way we aren't flirting with it being illegal, like say the Croc, that's 2.99 inches, whereas if you're going to get in trouble for having a knife that's over 3 inches in whatever municipality that you're in, if there are those laws, you're kind of flirting with disaster with that small of a measurement. 2.9, well under 3 inches. It's not going to measure over 3. You're kind of safe, and I think it makes good use of that 2.9 inches. Now, once again, the blade thickness is 1.118 inches, and we see that a lot from Vosteed. It seems that they use the same thickness in a lot of their knives, and that's relatively thin. It's going to be nice for this flat grind. Going to wind up being very slicey, and it is a flat grind through the entire blade, much like we would see from a knife company like Spyderco. So full flat grind, 0.118 thick. Okay. The blade width itself is 1.28 inches, which is incredibly wide. But as we can see, it has this big leaf shape. And because it barrels out like this, we're going to get that thickness to it, but it also starts very thin. So we have a blade that goes from incredibly thin to both incredibly thick, allowing for a lot of different piercing, cutting, slicing techniques, and different parts of this blade are going to be able to do different things for you. Now, this blade style is actually not a leaf shape. It's considered a Shillin Cutter. This is a old style of knife. It's from Taiwan, this style of blade, and it is made from farming. And a lot of this knife was really used with farmers in agriculture. It was used to cut stalks of plants. It was used around basically, growing food. And people would use this all day long to cut stalks of plants, to skin things, to to do various tasks. And there's a reason that the blade is shaped like this, and the reason that the blade is angled like this. Now, the reason the blade is angled like this, it has a negative cutting edge. It is lower down here than you hold it. So when you hold the blade, it's tilted down. And this means that you can cut through materials without moving your wrist. And it's actually really handy, and it makes it just actually slice through things like paper incredibly easy. If you start here and you move the knife just through it straight, it will actually cut through the material. It'll pull this blade through the material without having to cut down on anything. You're not going to have to come down on it like this. If you just come straight across it, it actually pulls the blade through the material, which is really interesting. And basically, when people were cutting with things all day long, they're in like a field working all day long, it would save their wrists from getting tired. It would save them energy. And I guess every little bit of energy counted. And so this blade geometry and the blade angle is well thought out. So the blade itself is made out of 154 cm. And that's going to be what I consider an in-between steel. It's not a budget steel, and it's not a super steel. It's an older powder metallurgical steel. It's really before like S30V came out. It's before S35VN, S45VN, MagnaCut, all the modern steels. It was the best steel on the block for a while. I think it's, a step above D2 in, not toughness or edge retention, but it's a step above it when it comes to, ease of sharpening. It's a step above it when it comes to corrosion resistance, of course. It's a nicer steel make than 14C28N, although 14C28N might actually be a tougher steel than this. It has a lot of properties that you would compare it to like S30V. And I would prefer S30V personally over 154 CM. Basically, in my opinion, 154 CM is like yesterday's steel. It's good. It's not great by today's standards. We're getting it for a cheaper price, and because it's a powder metallurgical steel, it's going to cost more than say 14C28N. I think you get a nicer grain structure on it than you do 14C28N. It's going to have better wear resistance and finer carbides than it will, but it's not going to be as wear resistant as S30V. It might be easier to sharpen though than S30V. Basically, you're getting a lot of the steel that you would, or a lot of the qualities of the steel that you would in S30V for a cheaper price. And it's just a slightly downgraded version, or a slightly downgraded steel that's comparable to S30V. In my opinion, the Shillin Cutter that comes in this satin finish looks really good. I like the grain structure on this blade. However, I don't like it because it is an absolute fingerprint magnet. It just, as soon as you touch this blade, it's covered in your fingerprints. And I find myself wiping this thing down all the time. There are a lot of satin finish blades do that. But this one in particular, it's just really hard to keep clean. It's a little annoying, but it is what it is. And, for $99, I'm not going to complain about it. It does look good. It does a nice job of cutting. You're able to get a really good edge on it. It's very sharp and it's very easy to work with. Moving on to the handles, we have G10. The more expensive version of this knife comes with aluminum, but I like this G10. It is definitely it's like a fluted G10. It has 3 dimensions to it. It's not flat. It definitely has it gets thinner here than it does here. It's very smooth, yet still grippy. It's nice. It's got a nice feeling to it. I think it has a really nice look to it. It almost has like a it's like not a wood grain, but just a grained look to it. It doesn't remind me of a lot of G10 like the Spyderco G10. It just looks nice. I'm actually a pretty big fan of it. We have stainless steel hardware on it. We have a deep carry pocket clip, and unfortunately, lefties, it is only one-sided. So this pocket clip only goes on this side. And to tell you the truth, even though it is a deep carry clip, it's not all the way towards the back, so you are going to have a little bit of knife sticking out on it. Doesn't really bother me that much. Doesn't have a ton back here to stick out, but it's not as deep carry as I guess it could be, and it's probably because this screw would be in the way. We do have a backspacer. It's a G10 backspacer. Nothing too fancy, but it does kind of round out the back. We have a lanyard hole. I don't care about lanyards. If you do, good for you. There you go. We are going to have an interesting 4 inches. So once again, much like the croc, we have about 3 inches here and 4 inches here. So I like the 3 to 4 ratio, or 4 to 3 ratio, however you want to say it, of handle to blade. And this handle actually happens to fit in my hand really nicely. I feel like you're supposed to choke up on this knife the way that the blade angle is. I find it comfortable to choke up on this knife. I like it at 4 inches, although many 4-inch handles can be a little too short for my large hands. We have a handle width of 1.13 inches, which is only right here. The rest of the handle is actually thinner, other than maybe right here. But as we see, it travels a very rounded distance across here. So we're going to have it be narrow here, fat here, narrow here. It's not 1.13 through the entire handle width. The handle thickness is 0.51, pretty much run of the mill for Vosteed. Half an inch feels good in the hand. It's about the right thickness. Less than that feels pretty thin. More than that can feel kind of chunky. I like it. We have a weight of 3.38 ounces, so it's a fairly light knife. All in all, very nice. We have a liner inside of the G10, but it is, hidden. It is recessed into the scales. Now, one of the most interesting parts about this knife is the locking system, and this is a proprietary locking system to Vosteed, and it is a Vanker lock. I think I'm saying that right, Vanker lock. And V-anchor lock, I'm not sure. And basically what this is, it's a button lock that's much like a compression lock. So as we see right here, we have this inset into the blade, this cutout right here, and that's where our Vanker lock is going to lock into. And what we have down here is, it's hard to see inside there, but if you look on the inside of here, maybe you can see it going in and out. We have basically a leaf spring like you would on a top liner lock going down the actual, just the middle of the center of the scale. And so basically right in the middle of the liner of the scale, we have this leaf spring going down it. And when we push this button down, it goes down through the middle of the blade and pushes down on this leaf spring, which in turn lets go of a bar that goes inside of here, pushes it down, and allows for the blade to move. Once the blade goes here, that bar pops up and into that groove, and it is locked in. It is very strong. It is locked. A top liner lock does that basically on this side. A liner lock does that basically on this side. The Vanker lock is doing that straight down the center. Good, bad. Otherwise, it seems very strong. It seems very strong, and I would say it's every bit as strong as a top liner lock or Spyderco's compression lock. It's just in a slightly different place of the blade, right down the middle in the center. This button right here is not doing anything too complicated, other than just basically pushing down through a slot or a hole in the middle of the blade back here and pushing down that leaf spring. But it works well. As you can see, when you push it in, blade drops. You're able to flip it back out, locks in, push it in, blade drops, so on and so forth. Not incredibly complicated, but does put the locking mechanism in a really handy spot, which is right where my thumb goes. Very easy to access, very easy to activate. Tends to be very reliable for me so far. So Vanker Lock gets a thumb up for me. I think it's innovative. I think it allows you to put the locking mechanism in a very nice place for the thumb to go to. It is right where I want to pinch the knife, where I'm holding it when I want to release the lock. So it is incredibly aesthetic. Works great. So basically the lock stays down as long as the blade is here. The leaf spring is held down. Once the leaf spring goes up, it pops this button up. So the only time this button is ever raised is going to be when the blade is in its locked position. And it is actually pretty much just a slightly over flush here, but there's no hot spot from it. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't ever really wind up touching it. My finger does not wrap around and touch it. I'm never going to release it with my index finger. I have very big hands, longer fingers, and there's no way that I'm ever going to wind up pushing that. So the safety of this knife is very on the safe side as far as the locking mechanism goes. So now we have the different ways to open this knife up. So if we want to open this knife, there's actually many, many ways to do so. And the first, of course, is going to be the thumb studs. And we can flick it open with the thumb stud. We can reverse flick it open with the thumb stud. Both are very good, nice and snappy detent, very good lockup. Both feel very comfortable to me. I like it. I like the lime neon green thumb studs against the blue. I think it looks good. Good choice of color, contrasting while still looking good together by Vosteed. I'm a fan. We also have a front flipper and a rear flipper. The rear flipper works great. I like how the tab is very small, doesn't really stick out too far over here on the knife. I do not like a big flipper tab, and this one works great. The geometry of it is great. The physics of it work great. It doesn't take much to flip it, and it seems to flip every single time just fine. I don't have any missed flips. Now, the front flipper on this knife is not one that I like. I tend to find that because of how the G10 scale actually raises as it goes over here, my thumb gets caught on this as I flip it, and if I don't snap it open and I try and slow roll it, it kind of gets like stuck right about here. And if you look, it's this point right here that I'm having trouble getting over. And I do have missed flips with the front flipper. Once you get used to it, I tend not to misflip it anymore. I kind of know what's going on. But when I first got this knife, it bugged me a bit. I did not have an easy time with the front flipper. Now I do. Just like any knife, you learn the knife and you learn how to get better at it. I do find that if you have any kind of play on the blade, it's not starting at like 0.0 or the 0 point, the starting point of the blade, it is hard to front flip. It's hard to get the inertia. If the knife breaks like that and flip it again, you're going to not get there. Not same with the rear flipper. There isn't enough room that you basically have to start from 0.0 or the starting point to get a good flick. I prefer the thumb studs over either. I'm just a thumb stud reverse flick kind of guy, and that's what I am looking for on a blade. Don't really use flipper tabs as much, but they're cool. They work. It's good. So I'm going to basically say that this is a very interesting knife. I didn't like how it looked when I first got it. I thought it was kind of ugly. It does kind of eat up a bit of the pocket. It's not the smallest knife in the pocket, much like Spyderco Manix 2. It's very bulbous right here in the middle. It's not the biggest knife, so it doesn't eat a huge amount of your pocket. But when you compare it to, something like this, this is a very thick knife, and it's still taking up less room in my pocket than right in the middle right here. We can compare this knife to some other knives now. So when we compare this knife to the Spyderco Para 3, because that's just the rules, we have a knife that again is slightly smaller than the Para 3. The Paramilitary 2 is much larger than the Shillin Cutter. That's just the way it is. It's another Vosteed, another small Vosteed. Vosteed makes small knives. It's just how Vosteed rolls, I guess. I have big hands. It kind of makes Vosteed a hard knife for me to enjoy, but it is what it is. It is right about the same size as the Vosteed Croc, and for some reason, this knife feels bigger. It has a shorter blade. It's about the same length, and the Vosteed, I will say the Vosteed Shillin Cutter fits in my hand much better than the Vosteed Croc, much because I think that I feel like I'm supposed to be choked up on this knife. I don't feel like I'm supposed to hold it back here. That feels strange. I feel like I'm in the right place with the blade while I'm choked up on it. On this knife, I want to be a little bit back from the blade. I don't feel like I'm supposed to be choked up on it like this. And I really think that lends to why this one doesn't feel short and this one does wind up feeling very short to me. Now, a knife that does basically have kind of a similar feel, not a similar look, but kind of a similar feel to it, is going to be this Kunwu Compadre. They're fairly close in size. And when I choke up on the Kunwu Compadre, I kind of have the same feel to the blade where I have this. This is a big bulbous clip point. I have this big swooping belly of a blade, and I am going to use this kind of in the same way that I'm going to use this knife. Now, this still has that downward trajectory on it, which allows me to just pull straight through cuts without actually having to angle my wrist at all. If I just go straight across material, the negative blade angle is actually going to pull the blade through a cut. Not so much on this. This is actually a straight blade angle, even though the blade dips down way far away from the handle. I'm still going to have to give it a little bit of a rock to my wrist to get it to pull through the material. But when I do, this is the closest knife that I had in my collection that I thought had kind of a similar feel to the Vosteed Shillin Cutter. It's not quite the same, but it's the closest thing I had. I think this is incredibly more aesthetic. I love the look of this. I really don't like the look of this. I think it's cool. It's grown on me a little bit. I don't think that this is a mean, tough, badass looking knife. I think it looks like a tool. I think this is a mean, tough, badass looking knife. I absolutely love the Compadre and Padre. They're some of my favorites ever. And I will forever think this knife just looks cool. And not really the case with the Shillin Cutter. The Shillin Cutter looks like a tool for cutting vegetables with to me. That's really what this knife looks like. It does do one thing that Vosteed does, like the Raccoon does it as well. And it has this cut in to where you're very thick through the pinch between your thumb and your pointer finger, your index finger. I'm able to, because of this thickness right here and just the angle of it is almost like a pistol grip, and I'm able to just really squeeze right here and get a lot of grip, a lot of just firm grip between these two fingers. And the rest of this hand just kind of falls into place behind it. And if you look at these two fingers, they're at an angle, right? This finger's up, this finger's way back into this groove. So it is definitely promoting me going like this with the knife even more. So it's promoting the cutting angle. And that's just a really nice feature that Vosteed does with its handles. And it's a way to make these short handles feel big enough for somebody with big hands like me, is by making it comfortable to choke up. Now, this blade lends itself to me choking up on it. I feel like my hand wants to be right on the edge of this blade. Like I said before, with a blade like the Croc, I don't want to be up here on this blade. I don't want to be that far. I want to give it a little space away from my hand like I do with the Smock. I want that little bit of space away from that blade, and I feel comfortable using this blade with that space from my finger. I don't know why. That's just how I naturally feel with this knife. I want to be back here on this knife. Because of that, I run out of handle. I run out of scale. And on this knife, because of how this sets it in and where my hand feels comfortable with this blade, I feel like I have enough handle back here, which is nice. So This knife is what I would consider a really good tool. It's a fun fidget toy. It has a lot of ways to fidget. It's much like a Golden Design Works caliber, where there's all these different ways to deploy the blade. It's a lot like the EMP EDC Nimble. There's all kinds of ways to deploy the blade. Both those knives have finger holes in them. This has thumb studs. Really, you're doing the same thing with either one, and they both work really well. I think that the bearings on this knife work really well with this blade and this handle. I have a much more appealing crack to the acoustics on this knife are nicer. They aren't like if you watched my croc video, the acoustics on this croc are just dull, has a thunk to it, which I just don't like. This has more of a crack to it, which I very much do like. I want a crack to a knife, much like you hear that? That with the compadre, that crack that Kanwu's known for. Pop, crack. I love that. That just sounds crisp and wonderful and good and satisfying to me. Vosteed doesn't really have that down yet, but they, once again, we're not dealing with titanium knives. We're not dealing with this heavy of blades. Still, this is nicer than the croc. It's a little bit more satisfying. Banker lock. I like the banker lock. I'm a fan. It works good. If you like compression locks, essentially it does the same thing. Nothing wrong with it. It's working on the liner. It locks the knife in very well. Good for Vosteed for coming up with this lock. It's innovative. It puts the lock release in a really easy spot. It's a button, very easy to push, very easy to fidget with the knife. My hand doesn't have to move around at all to open and close the knife, which is fun. It's nice. Again, I think this knife definitely could use a skiff upgrade. I don't think Vosteed is using the best bearings, but for a sub $100 knife, what are you really going to ask for? They're just fine. So in the end, is this knife worth the $99 that it is? Yes, materials wise, it's worth it. Nice handle, nice blade, nice thumb studs, good action, good materials overall. Does the knife appeal to me? The blade really doesn't appeal to me. I'm just not a huge fan of this blade. It is a Shillin Cutter blade, not a leaf, but it is very close to a leaf shape to me. That's the closest other blade that I can get to it, and I just think Spyderco's leaf-shaped blade looks so much more aesthetic than this thing does. I don't know why I don't think this thing is aesthetic. Maybe it's because the bulge is bigger on the top than it is, the belly's bigger on the top than it is on the cutting edge. I'm not sure. I just don't think it looks cool. I just don't. It's not for me. As a tool, does this work really well? Sure does. Works great. Would I buy this knife? As a tool, yes, I would. Would I buy this knife? Having bought this knife to review, I bought this knife just solely to review it because I thought it looked different. And I said, what the hell is up with this knife? Why is this knife what it is? Well, I found out why this knife is what it is, and it makes sense. So would I buy this knife? Yeah, if I would buy it for a specific purpose. If I was going to use it as a Shillin Cutter knife for vegetables or for using in the yard or anywhere where I didn't want my wrist to get really tired, I think it'd be good. I think if you had some mundane tasks to do where you had to be slicing through stuff like stalks of vegetables or something all the time, you could definitely cut down on things very easily with the tip of this, and you wouldn't hit your knuckles. Because of that downward angle on the blade. I think there's purposes to have this knife, and I would buy it for those purposes. Would I buy this knife just to everyday carry because I think it looks cool? Nope, I don't think this knife looks cool. I just don't. I don't think it looks cool. I think there's a lot other cooler looking knives than it. For $100, I think that, in all honesty, even a plain Jane knife like the Civivi Elementum probably doesn't do as good of a job as this knife does with materials or with blade materials, or even, cutting wise. I would still rather carry this around because I think it looks cooler. I'm more attracted to this knife. I think it's a more attractive looking knife. I think it's just a better looking knife than this is. It just doesn't call out to me. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I get the reason that it works. I think it's cool that it works. I think that it functions amazing. Just the shape, the look ain't for me. So if the shape and the look is for you, this is a total win. It's a great knife. I will definitely be buying more Vosteeds with the Vanker lock. I think the Vanker lock is a win. I think that Vosteed has done a good job using multiple deployment methods. I think they're definitely figuring out ways to make the knives interesting and fidget friendly. I think they did a great job with the G10 scales on this and making them fluted. I think that they do a good job of giving you different selections of blade steels for the price. And I personally would go ahead and spend an extra $30 and get an S35 VN blade. Or if I was going to get this knife, I think I would spend the extra $50 and get an LMAX blade. That's just me. But then again, I would not spend $150 on this knife because I don't want this knife in general because I don't like how it looks. And essentially, at the end of the day, guys, it's okay to not like a knife just because of the way it looks. It can work great. It can be an amazing tool. And it can just not be for you because there's other tools out there. There's other knives that do look the way you want them to that'll do the same job. There really are. There's no knife that does one job so good that it's the only knife you should ever buy for that job. I mean, maybe there is, but this isn't it. And there's no job that this knife does that you couldn't do with a knife you would enjoy much more. I would happily spend, $150 more on this knife than this knife and just walk around enjoying the hell out of this knife every single day that I carried it than I would on this and sit there and look and say, hey, my knife looks kind of weird. I don't want to carry a knife that I say, my knife looks kind of weird. I don't want to carry a knife. I'm like, this isn't really for me. I have a friend, my buddy Pat, who I own a knife company with. He's my partner in my knife business. We are coming out with a knife in a few weeks. We'll have our prototype, and I'm really excited about it. He likes this knife. He thinks it looks cool. More power to Pat. More power to him, because if this makes him tick, then go for it. And no hate. I will never throw any shade or hate on anyone for feeling a knife that I don't feel. Just like you shouldn't throw any shade at me for not feeling this knife just because I don't like the aesthetics of it. And that's the bottom line. Is it a great knife? Yes. Is it a knife for me? Nope, I don't like the way it looks. And I guess that is that. So this has been the Vosteed Shillin Cutter. Great knife, great function, great materials. I don't like how it looks. We are the Cutting Room Knife Review. My name is Garrett. I'm your host. And until next time, guys, stay sharp.